Dad, are you dead yet? It's rent day. This month it's up to 400. That's how my daughter wakes me every morning, not with a good morning, but with a bill. I open my eyes and stare at the ceiling of the very house I bought. Yet in her eyes I'm just an old man living off her kindness. If you're watching this video, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. If it were you hearing your own child say that, what would you do? Stay silent and pay, or finally stand up and take your life back? My name is Leonard Harris, 75 years old, and this is my true story about how a father was turned into a tenant by his own children until the day I decided to make them pay, not with money, but with the truth.
The first sound I hear every damn morning is her knuckles against my door. Not a gentle knock, not concern, just that sharp, impatient rhythm that says, "Are you dead yet? Dad, you still breathing?" Her voice cuts through the wood flat and irritated like I'm an overdue bill she forgot to pay. I don't answer right away. I just stare at the ceiling, letting that question hang there like smoke in the air. After 75 years, you start to wonder if maybe one day she'll get the answer she seems to want. Finally, I pull myself up, joints creaking like old hinges. "Yeah," I say, my voice low, still breathing. "Well, breakfast in 20. Don't be late." Footsteps fade. Silence crawls back into the room. This house used to be quiet. The kind of quiet that made you feel safe. Now it's the kind that makes you feel erased. I live in the first floor guest room, small, cold and painted beige like a hospital corridor. Renee calls it my space, but it's not mine. Nothing here really is. Funny thing though, I'm the one who bought this house. Paid cash for it 20 years ago. My daughter just never knew it. I sit on the edge of the bed, rubbing the ache out of my knees. The window's cracked, letting in that humid Baton Rouge air. The sun's barely up, but I can already hear David, my son-in-law, banging cabinet doors upstairs like he's punishing the furniture. He always leaves for work before sunrise, like he's allergic to the sight of me. Renee's voice drifts from the kitchen, sharp, practical, always calculating. I can almost picture her frown, the permanent crease between her brows that looks exactly like her mother's. Only colder. "Dad, coffee's ready." She calls again, though I know she doesn't mean it kindly. Coffee is rationed in this house, half a scoop per pot. "Economy," she says. I shuffle to the mirror. The man staring back looks like he's been left out in the rain too long. Deep lines, silver stubble eyes that used to have some fight in them. I tug on a clean shirt, long sleeves even in the heat to cover the scars. 42 years working at Louisiana Power and Light. My hands built half this damn city. Wires, transformers, substations, all solid, all working. Unlike this family. By the time I reach the kitchen, David's already gone. Renee's sitting at the table, calculator in hand, like every breakfast is a budget meeting. "Morning," I say. She doesn't look up. "You remember rent's due tomorrow?" There it is, her favorite word, rent. I pour myself a cup of that weak gray coffee and nod. I remember. Good. It's still 2,000 plus utilities. Electricity went up again, so your share's 400 this month. 400. I almost laugh. The only light I turn on is this bulb flickering over the kitchen sink, and even it seems to resent me. Renee finally looks at me. "Don't give me that face, Dad. Everything's more expensive. You know how hard it is for a family these days." I swallow my bitterness like cheap medicine. "Yeah," I say quietly. "I know." She exhales through her nose, that same sound she made as a teenager when she thought I was too strict, too old-fashioned. Her mother used to calm her, but Celia's been gone 20 years now, and I've been the villain ever since. Renee slides a small bowl toward me. "Oatmeal, plain, no butter, no sugar. You need to watch your cholesterol," she says. "I need to watch my soul," I mutter. "What? Nothing." She glares at me for a moment, then gets up to rinse her cup. "Marcus and the kids are coming by this weekend. Try to be pleasant, please." "I'm always pleasant." She snorts. "You barely talk to your own son, because he only calls me when he needs money." That hits her nerve, and I can tell she's about to lash back, but she stops herself. Instead, she says quietly, "You should be grateful, Dad. Not everyone your age gets to live with family." Grateful. Another favorite word. I don't remind her that I paid for this roof, this mortgage-free roof she now calls her house. I don't remind her that the checks she thinks are rent are just transfers between my own accounts. I just nod. You're right, I say. I'm lucky. Her lips curve, satisfied. Discussion closed. Naomi walks in just then, 19, bright-eyed, smelling like vanilla and coffee grounds from her part-time job. Morning, Grandpa, she chirps, leaning down to kiss my cheek. And for a second the room feels warm again. The usual, I say, smiling faintly. Half the night counting sheep, the other half counting my sins. Naomi laughs, genuine musical. Renee rolls her eyes. When Naomi leaves for college, the silence that replaces her is almost physical, like someone's shut a door between me and the rest of the world. Renee gathers her purse. Don't forget Dad rent by noon tomorrow. I won't. And maybe use less air conditioning. The bill's killing us. I look up at her standing in the doorway in her neat blouse and thin patience. She has no idea that every inch of this house, the walls, the floors, even the air she breathes belongs to me. When she leaves, I sit back down at the table staring at the black coffee cooling in my cup. Outside, the magnolias are blooming, same as they did the year Celia died. I whisper to the empty kitchen. You were right, baby. Money doesn't change people. It just shows who they already were. Then the phone buzzes, a reminder from the bank. Property tax notice. Address 1008 Rosewood Drive. My address. Not hers. I stare at it for a long moment. Then I smile. A small, quiet, dangerous smile. The kind a man makes when he realizes he's been invisible for too long, and maybe, just maybe, it's time to let them see him again. Saturdays used to mean something: backyard smoke from the grill, Celia's cornbread cooling on the porch rail, kids chasing fireflies in mason jars. These days, Saturdays mean performance time. By noon, I can already hear Renee storming through the kitchen like a general preparing for war. Dishes clatter, voices rise. The house smells of lemon cleaner and resentment. She's got that tone, sharp, efficient, like she's expecting an inspection. Dad, remember to wear something decent, she calls from upstairs. Why, I shout back. Because Marcus and Diane are coming over with the kids. And I don't want you sitting there looking like some retired drifter. Retired drifter. I laugh under my breath. If only she knew how close to the truth that felt drifting through my own house like a ghost that still pays rent. By the time the doorbell rings, I'm already sitting in my usual armchair. I don't stand when they come in. Marcus doesn't expect me to anyway.
He's 38 but walks like he's the mayor of Baton Rouge. Expensive watch-pressed shirt, the faint smell of cologne trying to hide desperation. Hey, old man, he says, forcing a grin. Still kicking? Still trying, I reply. You? He laughs too loud, that salesman laugh that always hides a favor coming. Diane hugs Renee first. They trade those fake smiles women use when they're quietly competing. The kids, two of them both teenagers, barely look up from their phones. Come on, Dad, Renee says, pulling me up. Let's eat. We sit. Grace is quick like a transaction. Chicken, mashed potatoes, and the tension you can cut with a dull knife. So Marcus says between bites, how's retirement treating you, Pops? I shrug. Quiet. Bet it's boring, huh? Sitting around all day, I manage. He leans back, wipes his mouth, then lowers his voice. You know business has been a little slow lately. Freight costs, fuel prices, the whole damn economy's a mess. I might have to let a few drivers go. There it is, the opening act. I was wondering, he continues, if maybe you could lend me something, short term, just until we land this new contract with Gulf Freight. Renee looks up immediately, her eyes darting to me, then to Marcus, like they've rehearsed this little scene. Marcus has been working so hard, she says, and they just need a little push to stay afloat. Just a few thousand, Marcus adds quickly. 5, maybe 6. David, sitting across from me, finally decides to speak. Maybe you should start charging interest, Earl. Turn it into a business. He smirks without looking up from his phone. Don't call me Earl, I mutter. What's that? I said my name's Leonard.
He shrugs, goes back to scrolling. Marcus chuckles awkwardly. Renee pretends not to notice. I take a long sip of water, watching my son's face, same features as mine, same stubborn jaw, but none of the humility. You still owe me from the last time, I say finally. Marcus blinks. That was years ago. Debt ages too, son. Renee sighs loudly. Dad, don't start. Marcus is just trying to provide for his family. And I'm just trying to stay alive, I reply, maybe sharper than I meant to. The air tightens. Even the kids glance up for a second. Marcus stares down at his plate. Forget I asked, he says. But there's poison in his voice. I already have, I answer. Lunch dies quickly after that. The laughter dries up. Renee starts gathering plates with jerky movements, clinking silverware like punctuation marks. Naomi slips in quietly halfway through dessert kisses. My cheek sits beside me like a silent apology. When they finally leave, I walk them to the porch. Marcus shakes my hand without looking me in the eye. Renee hugs him like a widow at a funeral. When the door closes, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The house feels empty again, but it's the kind of empty that feels honest. I step outside for some air. The neighbor, Mr. Thompson, waves from across the yard. He's about 60, wiry, with that easy smile of a man who's seen enough of life to stop pretending. Rough crowd today, huh, Lenny, he says. You could say that. He walks over, leans on the fence between our yards. Your boy's still trying to borrow money. I glance up, surprised. You hear that I got ears, he chuckles. And windows. Don't worry, I don't judge. My own son's been asking me for loans since Obama's first term. I smile despite myself. Doesn't it wear you down every time he says? But I learned something, old friend. Secrets and favors both rot when you keep them too long. You let either sit in the dark, they start to smell. I look at him wondering if he somehow knows. The house, the money, all of it. Some secrets, I say slowly, keep peace. Maybe he nods. Or maybe they just keep you lonely. He pats the fence and walks away, leaving his words hanging in the damp afternoon air. When I go back inside, the kitchen looks staged, spotless, but lifeless. Renee's voice echoes faintly from upstairs, talking to David about the bills. Always the bills. The mail is sitting on the counter. I flip through the stacked grocery coupons, a church flyer, and one thick envelope from the parish tax office. Property review, annual assessment. I frown, tearing it open. Inside is a letter. Dear Mr. Leonard Harris, our records show that the property at 108 Rosewood Drive is registered under your name. Please confirm ownership and schedule a standard tax inspection. My name, not hers. For a moment, I just stand there staring at the paper. Then I fold it neatly, slip it into my pocket, and whisper to the empty house. Looks like the ghosts are waking up. Money has a sound. Not the jingle of coins or the rip of bills, but a whisper. Soft, seductive, like the breath of a deal you can't quite refuse. I first heard that whisper in 2003, standing in line at a gas station off Florida Boulevard, the day I bought the ticket. Back then, I still worked for Louisiana Power and Light. 60-hour weeks overtime pay that vanished faster than it came. Celia was still alive, thin from chemo, but still trying to smile like the world hadn't already taken too much. I only bought that ticket because the clerk said, "Come on, old man, you look like you could use a miracle." He was right. When I saw the numbers on the TV that night, my knees went weak. $2 million. I thought the world would suddenly open up doors, opportunities, maybe a second chance. But the first thing that hit me wasn't joy. It was fear, because I knew my children, and I knew what money did to them. Marcus would see it as a lifeline to every failed business dream.
Renee would see it as security, her word for control. So I hid it. Sold the old duplex, bought this house in cash
under my name. Told everyone I'd got a deal through the company. Celia was the only one I couldn't lie to. She found the papers one night. I'll never forget her face, not angry, not proud, just tired. You did this without telling the kids, she asked softly. I did it for us, I said. They'd bleed it dry if they knew. Her fingers, thin as reeds, trembled as she reached for mine. Lenny, she whispered, don't let money build a wall between you and them. They built that wall, I said. I just put a roof on it. She tried to smile but failed. The morphine had dulled everything but her eyes, those deep brown eyes that could still cut through my stubbornness. Promise me one thing, she said. Anything. Don't let them buy your love, and don't sell it either. Not for comfort, not for peace. Her hand tightened around mine. Don't let them turn you into stone. A week later, she was gone. After the funeral, Renee handled the paperwork. Marcus handled the liquor. I handled the silence. And that silence has followed me ever since, hiding under the floorboards of this house, whispering every time I walk across it. Now, 22 years later, I'm sitting in my chair, the same one Celia used to curl up beside, holding the tax notice in my hands. It's like touching a ghost. Renee walks in, still wearing her office blouse, her hair pinned too tight, her mouth tighter. Mail came, she asks. I nod, trying to slide the envelope under the newspaper, but she's too quick. What's that? Nothing important. She reaches out and snatches it before I can stop her. Her eyes skim the top of the page, the header, the name. Property tax, she says, frowning. Why would this be sent to you? I keep my tone calm, because I've always handled the paperwork. The old owner asked me to keep track of the mail.
The old owner, she repeats, suspicious. You mean before we bought it? I nod once. Renee studies the page again.
But the name, it says Leonard Harris. I sip my coffee. Probably a clerical mistake. She doesn't buy it, not entirely, but she's too tired to argue. She folds the paper and leaves it on the counter. You should forward it to them, she says, turning away. Wouldn't want us responsible for someone else's taxes. I almost laugh at the irony, us responsible. If only she knew how responsible she already was. That night I sit by the window watching the lights go out one by one across the street. Baton Rouge sleeps heavy, but my mind stays awake, replaying Celia's voice. Don't let them turn you into stone. Maybe it's too late for that. The next morning, Renee comes down with her phone in hand, scrolling through bills, muttering numbers. Dad, she says without looking up, we got hit with a new property tax increase. Louisiana's bleeding homeowners this year. I nod. So she continues, I'll need you to chip in a little extra this month. 600 should cover it. I set down my cup slowly. 600. Yeah, it's just temporary, until things level out. Her tone is all business, no hesitation. I watch her for a long moment, her shoulders stiff, her face composed, her voice steady. She's so sure this house is hers that she doesn't even flinch when she taxes the man who owns it. All right, I say quietly. 600. She smiles, relieved. Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd understand. As she walks away, I whisper to myself, oh, I understand just fine. Then I look down at the folded tax letter in my lap, the ink still sharp, the paper still crisp, and for the first time in 20 years, I feel something shifting under those floorboards. Not guilt, not fear, but movement. Like the house itself remembers who it belongs to. It started with something small, it always does. A thermostat. 90 degrees outside, the kind of Louisiana heat that turns air thick as syrup, but Renee decided the electric bill was too high, so she shut off the air. By noon, the house felt like a furnace. I was in the living room, sweat crawling down my neck, when she came in with that tight look she wears whenever she's building a case in her head. Dad, she said, I looked at your bank transfer. You sent the rent, but not the extra 600. I'll send it tomorrow, I said. Need to move some money around first. Her eyes narrowed. You always have some excuse. You think we're made of money. I stared at her for a moment. There she was, my daughter, the girl who once ran barefoot through the yard chasing lightning bugs, now glaring at me like I was a tenant late on his payment. I'll send it, I repeated, voice low. Tomorrow isn't good enough, she snapped. We're behind because of you. Because of me, I let out a dry laugh. I barely eat your food, barely use your lights. The only thing I've taken from you is space to breathe. David walked in then, phone in hand, already annoyed. What's going on now? Renee turned to him. He's short again. I told you we shouldn't. Enough, I said, standing. Don't talk about me like I'm not in the room." David leaned against the counter, smirking. "Well, maybe if you weren't in the room so much, there'd be less to talk about." David, Renee warned softly, but he kept going. "Look, Leonard, no offense, but nobody wants to live like this forever. You're 75. You should think about other options." "Other options," I repeated slowly. "You mean a nursing home?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Something inside me snapped clean and quiet like a wire pulled too tight. "Let me tell you something, boy," I said. "This house—" "Don't start," Renee cut in, her voice rising. "This house is ours. We've carried it for years while you sit here acting like some victim." I looked at her, at the woman who used to cry in my arms when she was 16 and her mother died. "You think you've carried me," I said softly. "You have no idea what you're standing on." Naomi appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Mom, stop." "Grandpa, stay out of this," Naomi, Renee snapped. But the girl stepped closer. "He's not hurting anyone. You're acting like what?" Renee turned on her. "Like I'm tired of paying for everything while he just sits here pretending." "Pretending," I whispered. "Pretending what, Renee?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence between us felt like the eye of a storm, brief, breathless, waiting for destruction. David sighed, rubbing his temple. "Look," he said, "nobody's the bad guy here. But she's right, this isn't sustainable. You can't just live here forever." And then he said it. Flat, final. "No one wants you here, Leonard. Not anymore." Naomi gasped. Renee's face froze like she couldn't believe he'd said it out loud, but she didn't deny it. The room tilted a little. I could feel my pulse in my temples. For a second I thought maybe my heart had given up, that it was finally done, carrying everything I refused to say. Naomi was crying now. "How could you talk to him like that?" she shouted. "This is Grandpa, enough," Renee barked. "Everyone just stop." But I was already walking away. The next morning the heat had turned the bathroom into a sauna. I was washing up when the floor tiles suddenly blurred. My knees buckled. For a terrifying second I saw the edge of the sink rushing toward my skull. Then a pair of hands caught me. Grandpa, Naomi's voice sharp, scared, trembling. She'd come to check on me. She helped me sit, wiped my forehead, her hands shaking. "Don't tell your mother," I whispered. "She'll find out," I said. "Don't." Her eyes glistened. "She doesn't deserve to know," I managed a weak smile. "She doesn't deserve the chance to feel guilty." When I finally steadied myself, Naomi helped me back to bed. "You can't stay here," she said softly. "They don't see you anymore." "I know. Then what will you do?" "I'll think of something." That afternoon, I walked next door to find Mr. Thompson on his porch fixing an old radio. "You look like a man who's done thinking," he said without looking up. "Maybe I am." He chuckled, testing the dials. "Then what's left? I think I'm ready to leave." He finally looked up, eyes sharp under the brim of his cap. "Leave this house?" I nodded. "Well," he said, setting the screwdriver down, "if you want peace, Leonard, you'll have to claim your name first." "My name?" He pointed toward my chest. "The one on the deed, the one they forgot, was still yours." The words hit like a quiet gospel. I sat there for a long time, watching the sun bleed orange over the rooftops. The cicadas started their evening song, that low, endless hum of a world moving on. Finally I stood. "Thank you, Ray." He nodded. "Go take back what's already yours." That night, after Renee and David went upstairs, I sat in the kitchen with my phone. My hands trembled just a little, not from fear, but from something that felt like awakening. I scrolled through my old contacts until I found one name, Sandra Price. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. Back then, she was a real estate agent who helped me buy this house. I hit call. It rang twice before a smooth, professional voice answered. "Sandra Price Realty." "Hello, Sandra," I said. "This is Leonard Harris. You helped me with a property back in 2003. A pause, then warmth. "Mr. Harris, good Lord, it's been years. What can I do for you?" I looked around the kitchen, the walls, the photographs, the small signs of a life I no longer belonged to. "I'd like to have it appraised," I said quietly, discreetly. Of course, she replied. What's the address? I smiled. 108 Rosewood Drive. Another pause, just long enough for her to understand the weight behind those numbers. I'll be there tomorrow morning, she said. When I hung up, the house felt suddenly smaller, like the walls knew a secret was about to crawl out from under their paint. For the first time in years, I slept without dreaming. Morning came like a confession, sharp, bright, unavoidable. I hadn't slept much. Every sound in the house felt amplified, the refrigerator humming, the ceiling creaking, Renee's footsteps overhead. Each noise reminded me that I was a stranger inside my own walls. At exactly 9 o'clock, a silver Lexus pulled up to the curb. Sandra Price stepped out, tall, poised, mid-50s, her heels clicking with the rhythm of someone who always knew exactly where she stood. Mr. Harris, she greeted with a professional smile. It's been a long time. Call me Leonard, I said, shaking her hand. She followed me inside, taking in the spotless living room, the sterile perfection Renee demanded. Nice place, she said, but there was something in her tone, curiosity, maybe pity. We sat at the dining table. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, slicing the room into golden bars. I handed her the deed, the tax notice, everything. Sandra scanned the papers quickly, her eyes moving like a hawk's. Then she looked up. You didn't call me for an appraisal, did you? I smiled faintly. Not exactly. You own this house, she said, tapping the document. Outright. No mortgage, no liens, no co-owners, just you. Yes, but your daughter thinks she's renting it. I nodded once. Sandra leaned back, crossing her arms. That's quite a story. I'm tired of living in my own shadow, I said quietly. I want to sell it, but I need to do it quietly without her knowing it's me. Her eyes softened a little. Why? Because if she knew, I said she'd hate me for the lie, and if I tell the truth now, she'll hate me for the truth. Sandra exhaled through her nose, studying me. You know, she said, in my line of work, I've met a lot of people who lie about money. Husbands hiding it from wives, brothers cheating brothers. But you're the first man I've seen who hid it to protect people from themselves. Celia used to say, I'm too proud for my own good, I murmured. Maybe, Sandra said softly. But pride's not your problem, it's guilt. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. I can help you. We'll create a holding company, something anonymous. The sale will go through it. Your name won't appear until the very end, and by then it won't matter. She slid the papers back toward me. But understand this, Leonard, when the truth comes out, and it always does, people won't forgive you for it. They never hate you for lying. They hate you for daring to tell the truth. I met her gaze. They already hate me for less. Sandra smiled sadly. Then maybe you're finally free. 2 weeks later, the deal was in motion. Sandra handled everything: paperwork, inspections, the trust company name, Rosewood Holdings, LLC. It sounded sterile enough to mean nothing, which was exactly what I wanted. The last thing left was to leave. Naomi was the only one who knew. She showed up the night before with a small moving truck and tears she tried to hide. You don't have to do this, she said as we boxed up the few things that were truly mine. The radio, Celia's photo, a few old books. I do, I said gently. There's no room for me here anymore. She helped me load everything into the truck, then drove me downtown to a modest apartment in Baton Rouge, brick walls, small balcony view of the Mississippi if you leaned just right. It wasn't much, but it was mine. When we were done, she stood in the doorway looking around. It's quiet, she said softly. That's the best part, I replied. She hugged me tight. I'll come visit. I know you will, I said, patting her shoulder, but don't tell your mother, not yet. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and left. I watched from the balcony as the truck disappeared into traffic, swallowed by the city. For the first time in 20 years, I breathed without permission. The next morning, back at Rosewood Drive, Renee came downstairs to find the kitchen empty. No coffee mug, no morning paper, no sound of footsteps. Dad, she called. Silence. She checked the guest room bed, made drawers empty. The wardrobe stood open hollow. "David," she shouted. "He's gone." By the time she ran outside, the mailman was just pulling away. She opened the mailbox bills, a flyer, and one thick envelope stamped with the letterhead of Price & Associates Law Office. Inside a single page, "Notice to vacate, 30 days, dear tenant. Please be advised that the property located at 108 Rosewood Drive has been sold to new ownership. You are hereby given 3 days from the date of this letter to vacate the premises. Sincerely, Sandra Price." Representing Rosewood Holdings, LLC, Renee read the page twice before her hands began to shake. "David," she whispered, voice breaking. "They're selling the house." From the hallway, Naomi watched quietly, her heart pounding with the weight of the secret she now carried and the faintest, almost guilty relief that her grandfather was finally free. The phone rang just past noon. I knew it was her before I picked up. The way the sound cut through the air, sharp, relentless, it had her temper written all over it. I let it ring 4 times. Then I answered. "Hello?" "Don't hello me," Renee's voice hissed through the line, ragged, trembling between fury and panic. "What the hell is this? Dad, I'm guessing you got the letter." "I got eviction papers," she shouted. 30 days to vacate our home. My home, Dad. What did you do? Who did you sell it to? I sat back in the old armchair of my new apartment, watching the sunlight glint off the river through the balcony glass. "I didn't sell it to anyone you know." She went silent for a moment, then her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You knew. You've known all along, haven't you?" "Yes," I said simply. "How long?" "Since 2003. She inhaled sharply as if I'd struck her. "You mean this whole time, 15 years we've been paying rent? To you?" "Yes, Jesus Christ." I could hear her pacing, something crashing in the background. "You let me believe we were helping you. You sat there at our table eating our food, acting like some poor old man we had to carry. You lied to me, to all of us." I closed my eyes. "I didn't ask you for anything you didn't already owe me." "Owe you?" she screamed. "We owe you nothing. You're our father." "Exactly," I said. "And for years you treated me like a bill you couldn't wait to stop paying." "Don't twist this," she snapped. "You think this is some kind of revenge? Some pathetic attempt to make us feel guilty." "I don't need to make you feel guilty," I said quietly. "You already do." There was a long, shaking silence on the other end of the line. Then a voice I barely recognized, smaller, cracked. "You've really become cold, Dad." I sighed. "No, I've just stopped pretending I don't see who you are." "And who's that?" she said bitterly. "My daughter," I said softly. "But not the girl your mother raised." Her breath hitched at the mention of Celia. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could almost hear her trying not to cry. Finally, she whispered, "You did all this for money. You've lost your family because of it." "No," I said. "I lost my family because of what money did to you. Go to hell." "I already have," I said. "You built it for me." The line went dead. The apartment was quiet again, except for the hum of the air conditioner. Outside, the sound of traffic rolled like a distant tide. I sat for a long time, staring at the phone on the table, half expecting it to ring again. And it did. 10 minutes later, a different number this time. I almost laughed. "Marcus," I answered. "Dad." His voice was booming, furious. "What the hell did you do to Renee? She's losing her damn mind. You kicked her out of the house." "I sold my house," I said. "Your house." "Are you drunk? That's her house." "It's been mine since the day I bought it," I replied evenly. He went silent, then let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You're unbelievable. You sit there letting us all think you're broke, and meanwhile you're sitting on a fortune. What kind of father does that?" "The kind who watched his children forget how to love," I said. "Oh, don't start with that self-righteous crap," Marcus barked. "You could have helped me when I was struggling. When my business almost collapsed, you could have saved me. But no, you had to play your little games." "I wasn't playing games," I said. "I was watching the lessons repeat themselves. You chasing what you can't keep, Renee hoarding what isn't hers." both of you too busy counting to notice what's gone. Save the lecture, Marcus snapped. You think this makes you smart, you think this makes you better. No, I said quietly, it just makes me free. He scoffed. Yeah, well, good luck dying alone, old man. Then a pause, a strange hesitation. His voice softened, almost embarrassed.
Listen, since you're obviously doing real well now, maybe you could spot me a little something. Just a loan, short term. Business is rough again. Couple grand would go a long way. I closed my eyes, almost smiling. You called me to curse me, and now you're asking for money. Don't make this about pride, Dad, he said quickly. It's just a loan. Family. Help a family. Family helping family, I repeated. That's rich. I could hear him growing impatient. So yes or no? No, I said simply. Come on, no. The word hung there clean and final, like a door shutting on a storm. Marcus cursed under his breath and hung up. I sat there for a long while after that, letting the quiet settle around me. For the first time in years, my house, my life wasn't filled with someone else's noise, someone else's expectations. Just the hum of the air conditioner, the faint whistle of the river breeze through the window.
And somewhere far away, the echo of Celia's voice, calm, steady, unbroken. Don't let them buy your love, Leonard, and don't sell it either. I hadn't sold it. I just finally stopped giving it away for free. Silence has a texture. When you've spent years living inside other people's noise, their footsteps, their arguments, their sighs, real silence feels like a living thing, heavy at first, then healing. After Renee's call and Marcus's tirade, I shut the phone off, deleted their numbers, packed what little I owned into 2 suitcases, and left the apartment without telling a soul. Baton Rouge behind me, the highway ahead, that long gray ribbon of forgiveness. Sandra called a week later. Leonard, I've got good news, she said. I could hear papers shuffling in the background. Her usual brisk tone softened just a little. The sale went through, $910,000, all cash offer. I whistled low. Didn't think it'd go that high. It's a beautiful house, she said, even when people don't deserve it. Yeah, I murmured. It was never the house that was broken. Sandra chuckled softly. I've already transferred your net proceeds. You should see about $780 after fees and taxes. Plenty for a man who doesn't owe anyone a damn thing, I said. Then maybe you can finally rest, Leonard. I might, I said, if I remember how. A month later, I found a small house outside Plaquemine, a single-story brick cottage with wide windows and a porch facing the Mississippi. The realtor called it modest, but charming. To me, it was peace in 4 walls. I paid in full. No mortgages, no signatures except mine. The first night, I sat out on the porch with a cup of real coffee, not the weak, instant kind Renee used to buy. The air smelled of river mud and jasmine. The sound of cicadas drifted through the dusk. And then I heard her voice. You must be the new neighbor. I turned. A woman stood by the fence holding a watering can, mid-60s, maybe silver curls tucked under a straw hat. She had the kind of face that had seen storms but still turned toward the light. Leonard Harris, I said, standing up.
Harriet Dorsey, she replied, smiling. I live next door. My husband used to take care of those rose bushes before he passed.
They've been waiting for some attention. I'll do my best not to kill them, I said. She laughed, a soft, real sound. That's all any of us can promise. From that day on, Harriet would stop by every few evenings, sometimes with peach cobbler, sometimes just to talk. We'd sit on the porch, watch the barges crawl down the river, and talk about the kinds of things you can't say to anyone else. She told me how her husband had died 3 years back, how she still set a place for him at dinner out of habit. I told her about Celia, how she used to hum gospel tunes while folding laundry, how she once said the secret to surviving grief was to make peace with unfinished sentences. Harriet nodded slowly. Maybe that's why we talk, she said, so someone else can hold the silence for a while. We didn't need much more than that.
Just 2 old souls sitting between memory and forgiveness, keeping each other company as the river whispered past. One evening I came home from town to find someone waiting on my porch. Naomi. She looked older somehow, or maybe it was the sadness sitting behind her eyes. "Grandpa," she said softly, "I had to see you." I smiled and opened my arms. "You found me." She hugged me tightly like she was afraid I might disappear again. When she pulled back, she handed me a small manila envelope. "It's from Mom," she said. "She told me not to read it, just to give it to you." I looked down at the envelope. My name was written on it in Renee's careful handwriting. Dad, not father, not Leonard. The paper trembled slightly in my hands.
Did she say why I asked? Naomi shook her head. Only that you'd understand when you read it. I stared at the envelope, the weight of 15 years pressing against its seal.
Harriet's porch light flicked on next door, casting a warm glow across the fence. Naomi followed my gaze. "She seems nice," she said. "She is," I replied. "The kind of nice that doesn't ask questions." Naomi smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what you need." Maybe, I said, slipping the envelope into my jacket pocket. Or maybe I finally need to stop running from answers. The sky turned a deep violet over the river, and somewhere far off, thunder rolled, the soft kind that doesn't threaten. Just reminds you the world's still alive. I looked at Naomi and smiled. "Stay for dinner," she nodded. But even as we walked inside, my hand brushed against the letter in my pocket, warm from my body heat, heavy with everything still unsaid.
The envelope sat on the table for 2 days before I dared open it. It followed me like a shadow from the kitchen counter to the nightstand, from one cup of cold coffee to the next. Harriet noticed, of course. She always did. "You gonna read it?" she asked one morning. "Or let it haunt you till it opens itself?" I smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm afraid of what's inside." "Then it's already got power over you," she said, turning back to her garden. "Letters don't hurt. It's the words we still want to believe." That evening, after Harriet's porch light flickered off and Naomi had gone home, I finally sat down at the table and slit the envelope open with an old pocket knife. Inside, one page. Neat, careful handwriting. Renee's handwriting. "Dad, I don't know what you expect me to say. You lied to us and I can't understand why. But maybe this is who you've always been, a man who hides. Maybe that's how you protect yourself. I hope you're happy with your new house. You finally have it all to yourself. Renee." That was it. No apology, no anger even, just absence. The kind of emptiness that comes after every word that should have been there. I folded the letter and set it down beside Celia's photograph. "You'd have known what to say," I whispered. "I never did." Naomi came by the next morning with muffins from a bakery in town. She spotted the letter right away. "Did you read it?" I did, and I handed it to her. She read it once, then again, her eyes filling. "She still doesn't understand," she whispered. "She thinks you did this to her. She'll see it one day," I said gently. "Maybe not soon, maybe not ever, but one day." Naomi looked at me with that mix of love and guilt only the young can carry. "I feel like I'm betraying her being here." "You're not betraying anyone," I said. "You're choosing peace. That's harder." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. I reached for the folder I'd left on the counter and handed it to her.
"What's this?" she asked.
"Something I've been meaning to do for a long time." Inside was a single-page document, the Naomi Harris Education Trust. I'd moved a portion of the sale money into it, enough to pay for her college, her future, maybe even a small start in life. Her lips trembled. "Grandpa, I can't." "You can," I said, "and you will. Don't argue with an old man trying to make something right." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she threw her arms around me. "You're the best part of this family," she whispered. I smiled, holding her close. "Then maybe there's still hope for it." That night, when the house had gone quiet again, I took out a pen and an old sheet of stationery, the kind Celia used to buy in bulk when she still wrote letters by hand. I stared at the blank page for a long time before I began. "Renee, I read your letter. You're right, I've always hidden things. Sometimes to protect you, sometimes to protect myself. But you're wrong about one thing. I didn't lie because I stopped loving you. I lied because I couldn't stand watching love turn into debt." Your mother used to say forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about stopping the punishment. We've punished each other long enough. You don't owe me anything, and I don't owe you either. What's left between us is choice. I choose to forgive. Not because you asked, but because I need to breathe again. Dad. I sealed it, addressed it, but didn't mail it yet. Some letters need time to travel through the heart before they ever reach the mailbox. A few evenings later, rain swept over the river, a soft, steady rain that made the world smell clean again. I was on the porch listening to it tap against the roof when headlights cut across my yard. An old pickup stopped by the gate. The engine coughed twice before dying. The door opened. Marcus stepped out. He looked nothing like the man I remembered, heavier, unshaven eyes hollowed by exhaustion. His shirt was wrinkled, his shoes muddy. He stood there a moment in the rain, unsure how to start. "Dad," he said finally, voice hoarse. "I didn't know where else to go." I said nothing, just watched him walk up the steps. His shoulders slumped under the weight of whatever he'd done to himself. "I lost the business," he said. "The house. Everything." He gave a bitter laugh. "Guess it runs in the family, huh?" Water dripped from his hair onto the porch boards. He looked at me like a boy who'd just realized he wasn't bulletproof. "Please," he said softly, "just for a while, until I figure things out." I took a slow breath, feeling Celia's voice echo in my head. "Don't let them buy your love, Leonard, and don't sell it either." "Come inside, Marcus," I said quietly. "You look cold." As he stepped past me into the warmth of the house, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass. Not the son I'd failed, but the boy I once carried on my shoulders, back when love didn't have a price tag. Maybe this was where forgiveness had to begin, not in words, but in letting someone in from the rain. Marcus sat at my kitchen table like a man waiting for a verdict. His hands trembled around the mug of coffee I'd poured him, though he hadn't taken a sip. The rain outside had slowed to a whisper, streaking down the window in thin silver lines. He looked older, smaller somehow, like life had folded him in on itself. "I know I don't deserve to be here," he said finally, voice cracked. "I just didn't know where else to go." I nodded slowly. "You got somewhere now." He gave a weak smile. "That easy, huh?" "After everything, I'm too tired for revenge," I said, "and too old to keep score." He laughed, a hollow sound. "You always talk like you're in some sermon. You know that, like you're already halfway gone from this world." "Maybe I am," I said, "or maybe I just see it clearer from the edge." He rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling shakily. "I messed up bad, Dad. Business fell apart. The investors pulled out. I took loans I couldn't pay back. Diane left last month, took the kids to her mother's. I sold the truck, everything I owned. And now I'm here, broke, stupid, and begging the man I called a liar." I studied him quietly, not as a father judging, but as a man seeing another broken thing that used to be whole. "Marcus," I said finally, "I never wanted to see you like this, but I knew it would come." He looked up sharply. "You knew I saw the way you lived. Fast, loud, always owing someone something. You inherited your mother's fire, but not her patience." He stared down at the table. "So that's it, I get a lecture and a cup of coffee." I reached into my pocket and took out an envelope. His eyes followed it, hungry, desperate. "This will help you," I said, sliding it across the table. He grabbed it quickly, fingers fumbling with the flap. But when he opened it, the hope drained from his face. Inside was a single piece of paper. No check, no cash, just a handwritten note. "Conda tiu hetin tunquacharoy. You've spent all the love your father had to give." He stared at it, then at me, eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell is this supposed to mean?" "It means I loved you until there was nothing left to save you from yourself," I said quietly. "I gave you everything that mattered, patience, forgiveness, 1,000 chances. But I can't give you more than that, not anymore." He pushed back his chair violently. "You think this makes you noble, sitting here acting like some wise old saint while your family falls apart?" "I think it makes me honest," I said. He stood there shaking, torn between rage and shame. His mouth opened, but no words came. And then, to my surprise, his eyes filled with tears. He crushed the note in his hand, stuffed it in his pocket, and turned toward the door. "Goodbye, Dad," he said, voice breaking. "You win." I wasn't playing, I whispered, but he was already gone. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps on the porch again. Softer ones this time, Naomi's. She stepped inside, rain glistening on her hair, her eyes searching the room. "I just saw Uncle Marcus drive off," she said. He looked. She paused. He looked like he'd been crying. I nodded. He needed to. She looked at me for a long moment, then walked over and sat where Marcus had been. Her gaze fell on the half-empty mug, the rain outside, the stillness hanging in the air. "You didn't help him, did you?" she asked softly. "I tried," I said, "just not the way he wanted." She studied my face, and something in her expression changed. Not judgment, not pity, just understanding. "You love him still." "Of course I do," I said. "That's the punishment." We sat in silence, listening to the rain pick up again, tapping steady against the glass. After a while, Naomi turned to me and asked, "Grandpa, do you ever regret it?" "Any of it." I looked past her out to the gray sky, bending low over the river. For a moment I thought of all the words I could have said, all the times I stayed quiet when love should have spoken louder. "I don't regret what I did," I said finally. "I just regret how long it took me to do it." She frowned gently. "You mean selling the house?" "No," I said. "I mean finding my voice." Her eyes glistened. She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm glad you did." I squeezed her fingers the way I used to hold Renee's when she was a child, afraid of thunderstorms. Outside, the rain slowed again, soft, hesitant, like it wasn't sure whether to stay or move on. "I kept too many things buried, Naomi," I said. "Too many truths, too much silence." "Your grandmother used to say, secrets are just memories that refuse to die." "And you finally let them go," she said. "I did," I whispered. "But the silence doesn't forgive you right away. It waits to see if you mean it." She nodded, her thumb brushing my hand. "Then I guess you've waited long enough." Maybe she was right. I looked out toward the river again, where the clouds had started to thin, letting the evening light break through. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like breath. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges. The anger, the shame, the noise of old wounds, they don't vanish. They just settle into the quiet corners of your days like dust on sunlight. Months had passed since Marcus drove away in the rain, since Renee's last letter, since I decided to stop answering the phone when the past came calling. Now my mornings belonged to small things, pruning the rose bushes Harriet taught me to save, warming my hands around a cup of black coffee, and letting the radio hum soft jazz through the kitchen while the river moved slow outside. The world didn't demand much of me anymore, and that I'd learned was a gift. Harriet came by most evenings. She'd bring a pie or just herself and sit across from me on the porch. We didn't need conversation, not always. Sometimes she'd hum along to the music drifting from the window, Ella Coltrane, a bit of Miles Davis, and the notes would carry out into the dusk like something holy. "You ever notice she said one night that peace doesn't shout? It just shows up, sits beside you, and waits till you notice." I smiled. "I notice." She looked at me, eyes crinkling. "Good. Took you long enough." Naomi still visited when she could. She'd drive in from the university on weekends, books and papers spilling out of her bag, always talking fast, her words glowing with the kind of purpose youth carries like fire. "I've picked my thesis topic," she told me one Saturday, excitement bubbling under her voice. "It's about elderly exploitation, how families sometimes turn love into labor, affection into ownership." I raised an eyebrow. "Sounds familiar." She grinned a little sheepish. "You might have inspired it." "Then I'll expect royalties." She laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "You've already paid enough, Grandpa." When she left that afternoon, I stood on the porch long after her car disappeared down the road, thinking that maybe through her something good might still grow from everything that had fallen apart. That evening, the sun dipped low over the Mississippi painting, the water in gold and bruised pink. The air was heavy with the smell of jasmine and cut grass. I sat in my old wicker chair, the one that creaked like an honest friend, and watched the day fade slow. I thought of Celia, how she used to hum while folding laundry, how her laughter could still echo in the walls of my memory. I could almost see her sitting beside me, that calm smile that forgave more than I ever deserved. I stood up, baby, I whispered into the twilight. Just like you wanted. For a while I sat there in the quiet, feeling her answer in the breeze. The screen door creaked. Harriet stepped out holding 2 mugs of coffee, steam curling into the evening air. Thought you might need a refill, she said. I took the cup, smiling. You read my mind. Not hard to read, she teased. You only think about 3 things, coffee, jazz, and ghosts. Maybe I'm running out of ghosts, I said. Then you're doing something right. She settled into the chair beside me. We sat like that for a while, side by side, letting the world turn quiet around us. And then the phone rang. That old rotary one on the side table, the one I kept plugged in for no real reason. The sound was startling in the hush of dusk. Renee's name lit up the screen. Harriet looked at me. You gonna answer? I stared at it, the ringing steady and soft like a heartbeat I no longer needed to chase. Then I smiled. No, I said. The ringing went on for a while, then stopped. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was whole. Harriet reached over her hand, resting gently on mine. You okay? I nodded. Better than okay. Out over the river, the last light caught the water, turning it to fire before it slipped into night. A breeze rose, brushing across my face, cool and tender. I leaned back in my chair, breathing deep, letting it all go, the weight, the history, the ache. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt light, free, forgiven. Forgiveness is not for them, I thought. It's for me. The river kept moving steady and certain, carrying everything I'd finally learned to let drift away. You know, people think revenge means fire and fury, screaming, slamming doors, making someone bleed for what they did to you. But at 75, I've learned the sweetest revenge is peace. No shouting, no proving, just living well and letting silence do the talking. I don't hate my children. I pity them because money's all they'll ever worship, and peace is something they'll never afford. So if you've ever been used, ignored, or made to feel small in your own home, remember this: you don't owe them your anger. You owe yourself your freedom, and that's what I bought back, not with dollars, but with dignity. Forgiveness. It's not for them, it's for me.